I had no idea what to expect from the Xbox Game Showcase, and you know, it kicked ass so hard. I said before, the PlayStation Showcase would wipe the floor with every other showcase that we would get this summer season, and I said I was wrong. Like, that's another video. I said I was wrong. I was super wrong. We all saw how that went, and how Xbox has the opportunity to be that moment of the summer that is just like, yeah, there's a lot of kick-ass stuff you could play. There's a lot of cool things you could try out. How to do. It might have been the best show Xbox has done in memory. This show, what they did was just barraged us with the feeling that everything Xbox has been setting up is starting to finally roll. And third parties showed up, Starfield showed up, a game that really can seem like the game of a generation. Will it? We don't know. We don't know like how things are gonna be from what is released in this show, but they started it off in such a banger way that I thought they would end it before showing Starfield. You could see all the games announced on screen here from Aaron Greenberg. They show 27 games total, which is less than what they have done previously. They've kind of been on this continuous record ever since 2020, I would say, where they show we showed over 30 games today. While that didn't happen today, everything that was shown got a really good showing. It was a really good just showing of each of these games. This is from what studio, this is what you could expect from the game. Everything in here felt like I had a decent idea as to what I am getting into if I choose to play this. We started off with Fable. The show started with Fable. And I did a poll before the stream asking everybody what of all these, in development games that it's been a while since we got an update, which one are you looking forward to most? And the chat said Fable, and the show kicked off with what they wanted most. And I need to tell you, this was all in engine. You see it at the bottom. A lot of this stuff, everything from first party, actually, they did a good job clarifying, this is in engine, this is on PC with Series X settings, And the Fable showing we got is in engine. It's not necessarily gameplay, but it is an engine representation. And the reason I believe that hard, and you might be one of those folks that's skeptic. I'm a bit skeptic of the things that we're seeing in this show. Totally understandable. But the reason I buy that this is how Fable's gonna roughly look, probably not as good, but roughly. These character models, their animation and everything, it just looks like a slightly more polished version of Forza Horizon 5. The cutscenes that happen in those games, the style, you really can feel this is a Fable game running off of that same tech, and it shows. But we don't stop there, and they nailed the humor and everything. It feels like this is finally a new Fable game, but then they just instantly reveal Compulsion's new game. The people that did We Happy Few, we get to see their next project, which I really thought we might be able to see finally after all these years. Compulsion's probably the most likely. And I really didn't think we would see Compulsion's new game. I think it's South of Midnight, something like that. I'm very curious to see how that goes. And this was probably the most cinematic-ish reveal, but it's running off of what looks to be whatever style they're going with. And I'm very curious how this translates to gameplay, but I didn't think we would also see In Exile's game too. In Exile, the people that did the Wasteland series, and it's their first big first-person action-adventure game, if you will, that definitely looks a lot like BioShock Infinite, which I don't mind because I adore BioShock Infinite. It's even got a bit of a time mechanic to it, going to two different realms. I did not expect to see both. I thought we would see one or the other, but we saw both. And that's where a big highlight of this show is the first party peeps showed up hard. It literally kept catching me off guard how many times we saw from Xbox Game Studios, Xbox Game Studios, Xbox Game Studios. This show, like the 2021 show, really gave this feel that after everything that they have bought the past 5 years, and especially 5 years ago, we're finally starting to see them churn out stuff. We saw Avowed. Avowed showed up here, the first full-blown gameplay trailer, which didn't impress me or anything, but I'm just happy to see it. And Obsidian has been knocking it out of the park review-wise for Xbox. It's probably the most well-acclaimed studio that they've gotten since they've gotten them, with just consistently reviewing well. And now their next big game, Avowed, is coming in 2024. Also, Ninja Theory. Hellblade 2. Oh my God. It legitimately made me speechless. And this is my most anticipated Xbox project, FYI. Yes, more than Starfield, believe it or not. We will get to Starfield, as well as some cons I have with the show. So stick around for that. Like, there is some issues I have with the show, even though it's like maybe my favorite. Voice crack. But Hellblade 2 in particular is, again, one of those new studios that they got back in 2018 that just, this showing we saw, yes, you're not seeing the combat gameplay or anything, but to me, that's not really what makes Hellblade Hellblade. It's about being this immersive experience, playing as Senua, experiencing what she's experiencing, and a very narrative-driven adventure rather than just totally action or totally puzzle-solving. And this snippet, you would think this is a CGI trailer with how crazy good it looks, but it's not. This is totally Ninja Theory going nuts with Unreal 5. It's insane. And yes, like Avowed, they both matched up to what I thought would be the next phase of Xbox after Starfield and Forza Motorsport. Hellblade 2 comes out in 2024. Which, that's another pro to this show, is that they didn't overpromise too much. Could they have showed, I don't know, State of Decay 3 or Perfect Dark? Maybe, but they didn't want to overpromise in the show, and I like that. There's even one of my biggest like personal issues with the show that I'm going to bring up later, that, am I bummed that it wasn't here? Yeah, but I kind of can understand why they didn't want to bring it here either, because they wanted to make sure everything they show is in engine, it's on the way, or giving people an idea, and even giving these 2024 release dates did that. Instead of saying Hellblade 2 is coming out like February 2024, they kept it vague because they don't want to deal with another situation where they're delaying games and the internet,
and everyone loses their minds.
I was so happy with the first party stuff. There's so much. Like, I love the collaboration between Sea of Thieves and Monkey Island, and the new update to Microsoft Flight Simulator is really cool. Just adding a purpose to everything you do in the game now. Instead of just flying, you can actually like serve the world. That's really freaking cool. We got a release date for Forza Motorsport being October, and I guess that's really going to be the way they close out the year, because the other next phase, if you will, is from a partnered game, Towerborn, which looks all right. You know, it's just another partnership like Ori, Flight Simulator, As Dusk Falls, but we'll see how that goes. That alongside Avowed and Hellblade 2 is kind of the next big three, if you will, from Xbox. But we got such a good idea of the future coming after. I'm going to come back to Starfield, but just before I bring up Starfield, because that's going to transition us to sort of cons, third party showed up. That is something else I really am happy to see here. Third parties showed up at this show. It felt like Xbox matters to the industry, and that's something I personally really wanted. I didn't hear enough people bring that up. All we were talking about is first party stuff, which is exciting, absolutely, especially because if you're a Game Pass person, you get all the first party stuff day one, which is the big enticement about being on Xbox. So why would third parties show up when they know that's kind of the mindset of a lot of Xbox fans? Well, they showed up nonetheless. We got a new Yakuza game showed. Atlas showed up a lot with, you know, Persona 3 Remake, which did get leaked, as well as like the Persona 5 Tactics game. Both those are coming to Game Pass day one. We also got to see just a new IP, I think it's called Metaphor or something like that, from Atlas. Like, JRPGs showed up at the show. Of all the third-party things to show up here, they did third-party JRPGs. And half of them are coming to Game Pass, which is sick. So that's amazing. Ubisoft showing up with a Star Wars game. It felt like partners wanted to be here with the amount of partnered stuff that showed up. Payday 3, I forgot Payday. There was a lot. And that was something I really wanted to feel like, even though I'm sure a lot of the stuff that PlayStation shows is coming to Xbox, I want to feel like the publishers and the owners want to be there. And speaking of partners, one more kind of weird thing that is kind of a communication problem of this whole thing. Overwatch 2, just really quick, Overwatch 2 showed up and they announced they're going to have the story mode actually come in and the PvE stuff. But they just announced, didn't Blizzard just announce that they are not doing that? So what, did they take back their word on that? Comment down below and let me know how that goes, because that was a really weird part of the show that I was like, I'm really happy to see this because that's going to be awesome. But did they just take it back? Like, I'm confused. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know whether to compliment that or not. That was really confusing. Okay, now Starfield was a really weird one because I am not a Bethesda fan. I'm not even an RPG fan, if you didn't know. And it's like one of the most anticipated games of the year, if not the most. It was actually our community's most voted anticipated game next to Zelda. And I have to tell you, that direct afterwards, even the first trailer that they put up in the middle of the show, this really seems like this could, keyword could, be one of those games that we call a game of the generation, with how much there is to do, with the story that you can tell, with the experience that you can have. And there's so much to dive into with this game that they did dive into, between the making the ships, the RPG elements, choosing factions, getting crew, selling stuff, talking to people, just everything. I might have said customization twice. There's so much that could just be your experience in this game, and it looks a lot smoother than the first time they showed it. The gunplay looked really freaking good. Starfield really, really impressed me here, so much so that I was just blown away. This whole show, I was blown away. Like, I was freaking out at the beginning of it, but the back half, the energy was gone because of how much I freaked out. But there was some problems. There was a lot of communication and expectations set for this show, saying that we're going to have an hour-and-a-half showcase of just Xbox. It's our Xbox game showcase. And then following the show, we're going to have a 30-minute Starfield Direct. We got that, but just very different lengths. We got like an hour and 7-ish minutes Xbox showcase, followed by a 47-minute Starfield Direct. So it's like, they changed it. I don't know why they would do that and set those expectations when they even say, we want to really set proper expectations in the future. And they did that in terms of the gameplay and the stuff that they showed, yes. But just why say different times when that just didn't happen? Why did Blizzard say that we're canceling the story mode and then add it? There was just a lot of weird, confusing settings before this show that, like, was it to catch us off guard? Do we want to trick people to make it seem like they're only gonna see a half hour of Starfield, but instead we're gonna trick them? And I don't know. I thought that was really weird. And on the personal level, these are not actual cons. It's just on the personal level, I'm very sad to not see Halo Infinite here, and it is continuing to be the flagship Xbox IP that Xbox just doesn't feel confident marketing to their audience with. Like, this is an entire other video that I might do, but just, I get it. I get why. I personally just think Halo Infinite is at that spot that they can market it. Maybe not confidently, though. And maybe that was the issue. So let me know in the comments if you want a full video about that. And I wore this shirt to summon the bird and bear, and they didn't show up. Banjo-Kazooie didn't show up, which that's fine. I didn't get no Banjo-Kazooie. I didn't get no Killer Instinct versus Xbox game. I didn't get, some things. And I think the only thing that was missing from this show is just maybe another indie game or two. I love the Xbox shows because they do highlight the indies as well. And I was a bit bummed to not see an indie game or two. They might have their own ID at Xbox Showcase to do that, but I love seeing an indie or two mixed into this show. And there was the new Don't Nod game, and I forget there was another one that kind of had a sort of anime-ish style. So yeah, I think just the miscommunication, the lack of indies, those two things mainly is what stops me from giving this show like a perfect 10 out of 10 score. But nonetheless, they showed up with first parties. They showed up with third parties. They kept it going and going and going. And Starfield really does look like it could be a game of the generation. And this show literally made me say out loud, I hate that I have a PlayStation and a Nintendo, because I just want to play all this Game Pass goodness that is coming to me in the future. And that's what Xbox shows specifically are trying to do. To not make you sell your PlayStation, Nintendo, but just to make you feel like, damn, I have too much to play being a Game Pass person. Not an Xbox person, but a Game Pass person. And that's how I felt coming out of the show, and therefore they succeeded. I gave it a solid 9 out of 10. Let me know what you thought of the showcase down below in the comments, and if you want to support the channel, especially now currently since I guess my AdSense is shut down and just monetization in general, you could join up Patreon where we will speculate more on coming topics.